There really isn't a word to describe the 2016 election. It was an abnormal yet interesting election that changed the way many Americans view U.S. politics. The Electoral College has been in use since the first presidential election, but in 2016, when President Trump won the presidential election despite losing the popular vote to Hillary Clinton, that process came under fire. This has only happened four other times in history, with the two most recent being in 2016 between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, and then in 2000 between George W. Bush and Al Gore. These elections left many Americans wondering whether the U.S. should continue using the Electoral College. My name is Walker Dillard, and I'm going to explain why the U.S. should continue to use the Electoral College. The Electoral College was created by a compromise amongst many ideas. Some of these being that the Founding Fathers believed that people weren't informed or knowledgeable enough to vote on who runs the country, while other Founding Father members believed that it should be the people and the people alone that vote on who becomes president because that's what is important in a democracy. It was also a compromise between small and large states. Let's say a popular vote were to be enacted today. Small states would have virtually no representation in an election. They would vote, and each of their votes would count and be counted in the national election towards the popular vote, but their votes would be negated by the massive populations in large cities and states. Presidential candidates would spend most of their time in large cities such as LA, Miami, Atlanta, New York, etc., these big cities, and would spend no time in small cities and small states. The Founding Fathers saw that this would happen and that each vote would not be equal, and this is with the same thought they created the bicameral Congress, so that each state would have equal representation in Congress and that each state's voice was heard in politics. Without the Electoral College, presidential candidates would only reflect the needs of big cities. They would not reflect the needs of the small cities. Each state has a different need, and it is important that each of these needs is met by a presidential candidate. There are also other problems that happen with a popular vote. According to Gary Gregg of Politico.com, a popular vote would create national runoffs and national precinct-by-precinct recounts of votes in close elections. People think that the 2016 election was tampered with, but with a popular vote, it would be much easier for someone to tamper with evidence. With runoffs happening and a continuous precinct-by-precinct recount of votes, it would be easier for someone to tamper with the amount of votes going towards one presidential candidate. Elections would take much longer and would be more contentious than what elections are with the Electoral College. The Founding Fathers also feared another thing. According to Mark Schulman of History Central, the Founding Fathers were afraid of direct election to presidency. They feared that a tyrant could sway public opinion with propaganda and come into power by just gaining public opinion. They believed that one person could stay in power and influence U.S. politics based on public opinion. With all that in thought, the Founding Fathers found the perfect balance with creating the Electoral College. The Electoral College also prevents a situation where votes are diluted between multiple candidates. The Electoral College creates a two-party system, and most people do not like the two-party system, but it is effective. Without the two-party system, votes would be split between 3 to 5 candidates, and their votes would be lost in a sea of candidates. Let's say the next election was a popular vote. You'd have Donald Trump running for the Republican Party. You'd have Joe Biden running for the Democratic Party. You would have Bernie Sanders running for his own party. You would have Elizabeth Warren running for her party. Andrew Yang running for his party. There would be all these candidates running for their own party, and it would split the popular vote between 3 to 5 candidates. This would make it to where the popular vote could only be 30%. And how would 30% reflect a popular vote? There's third parties in the Electoral College, but they don't have much influence because people know that these third parties couldn't come into power. These third parties can't overtake the Republican and a Democratic Party in the Electoral College. But with a popular vote, a third party could come into power because in a popular vote, the percentage would be lower, so people would be more likely to vote for these third parties in a popular vote. Also, there would be more problems created with a popular vote because changing the way the U.S. would vote would need a lot of support. In order to change this, an amendment would need to take place, which would require 2/3 of the Senate, 2/3 of the House, and 3/4 of the state support. This would be virtually impossible because political polarity has grown to a massive extent. So, for a Congress that can't agree on a simple idea, it'd be hard for them to agree on such a massive idea, such as changing the voting system. To put this in perspective, according to Tom Nurse, a political reporter, there have been over 10,000 amendments that have been proposed since 1787, yet only 33 of these amendments have been put in place. That shows just how hard it is for an amendment to be passed in Congress. In a representative democracy, it is important that the citizens' voices are heard. However, when the citizens saw that the popular vote didn't equate into that candidate winning, they didn't see that their voices were heard. They didn't feel like their vote really mattered. But at the bottom of the line, every person's vote matters, and every vote counts. In a democracy, it is important that each citizen's voice is heard, and that each citizen votes on their own personal interest. With the Electoral College, a popular vote does matter, just within a certain state, within your state that you're registered to vote in. Your vote could be one of many that help sway the state from one side to another. To end it off, there are only 8 states that have a larger population than LA. In a popular vote, LA would have more representation than 42 other states combined. The Electoral College voids all these problems that are created by the popular vote. And while the Electoral College isn't the perfect system, and the Founding Fathers didn't believe that the Electoral College would be a perfect system, it does work well for the United States. And it would work much better than a popular voting system would work in the United States. A popular vote creates so much problems that it is much easier for the U.S. to just keep the Electoral College, which was working perfectly. There hasn't been any problems with the Electoral College ever, and so there's no need to change the Electoral College. And that is why the U.S. should continue using the Electoral College.